Well, you see a little bit of different venues, some trees behind us, a bit of a patio here on the Rick Corey Sports Special. We're going to go outside. These guys were outside last Friday. It's Adam Gaylor. He's the head coach at Jenks, and what a win. 48-30 over Union doesn't tell the story. That game was put away fairly early. And I know after looking at film, you always pick on some things, but you got to be pretty pleased. Tell me what you liked the most.
I like the way we started. Obviously, started fast on both sides of the ball. Which was the kind of a big point for us. Coming off the Owasso game, slow start. Credit them for playing well early. Owasso, that is, and all week we talked about starting fast, attack mode as soon as we took the field, and our kids did a great job of it.
I thought they did as well, and they kept that pressure on. Now the second half, Union came back and scored a little bit. I know you had a chance to work some guys in. We'll get to that in a minute. I want to go back to your stars again. Landon Kazar was just fantastic. He reminded me, and this is almost sacrilege, a bit of a Mark Ginther. Now Mark was athletic and a little bit bigger and all, but it was the way he carried himself, the way he seemed calm and managed the game. Is that his demeanor always?
Always, and that's high praise. I'll have to make sure I let him know that you compared him to Ginther. He's because Ginther's one of the best high school quarterbacks I've coached against. But yeah, Landon, he is steady Eddie. Nothing, whether we're up or down or it's hot or cold or whatever. Nothing really affects him. He's the same guy all the time, which again, kind of a little different than I am. I'm kind of more emotions on my sleeve type guy. But it's obviously a really good trait to have. Your quarterback to have is kind of that even keel. He makes might make a poor play, but he comes right back and is unfazed by it.
He seems to be one of the guys who can read things really well too. And it's not quite the same skill set as Ginther. Ginther was a different body, like I said. There was just something about the way he carried himself. Because to me, when I see quarterbacks, I look at body language. I watch them in the huddle. I watch them on the sidelines. I watch them after an incompletion to see how they handle that. And he just seems so calm the whole time. Of course, he's got some pretty good players around him. Saw KD wearing his dad's number and setting that record pretty early. He had a fantastic night. I'm sure he was fired up, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Credit to him for, he had some distractions, some interviews during the week about, passing his dad. It was the 25th anniversary of his dad's, game-winning catch against Union, like we talked about last week. And, KD kept the main thing, was going out and winning. And we talked about, hey, man, it's awesome that you're going to pass your dad. And it's the, 25th anniversary of that play. But if we go out and lose, it's going to be a bad memory, So he went out and took care of business and had a tremendous night and has done a great job. Again, off the field from a leadership standpoint, he's been one of our guys and really stepped up his game in that aspect.
All right. So other than those guys, who else were you really happy with?
Well, obviously, Caleb Dillard, another big night, offensively and defensively, he's coming back into his own. I keep reminding him that, when I talk to people about him, I list him as a DB / wide receiver. So, but he's one of the best wide receivers in the state, that I've seen on film. Explosive guy. He was one of the big contributors. Uh, Defensive lineman Luke McAnally was almost unblockable the other
Monster.
night. He was. He's always been a strong kid. He played for us as a freshman. As a matter of fact, we gave up a big run his freshman year to Union, and so I reminded him, "Hey, let's play a little bit better, this time, not get out of our gap and give a big run." And he certainly did that. I mean, he was phenomenal. You watch the film and the amount of knockbacks and split double teams and tackle for loss. He has a tackle for loss on number 12, and you can see him trying to chainsaw and rip the ball out and just high football IQ. Ace Gilliam, pick six. Zion Castleberry had a big interception. Clark Carricker continues to be one of our best players on both sides of the ball. So those are some of the other guys. And again, our offensive line, we had Malik Craig was back for his first game. He got injured this summer, and so he missed the first 2 weeks. And so it was nice to have Malik back and again working, be able to work six guys that you feel really good about up front. It's been awesome.
I want to go back to McAnally because yeah, he does pop. I mean, he really pops. And when I watched him walk out for the national anthem, we're like, that's a tank. That's not a human. I mean, he's built and he's a rectangle. I mean, there
Yes.
doesn't seem to be any of that. And then so you're like, all right, well, let's watch his feet. And I mean, he snaps off the ball. Reminds me of Jackson. He used to play at Tulsa and went down to Baylor. He's got that kind of a thing, and he also seems to have that kind of an attitude. You've seen him grow and change. What's he getting better at? What does he still have to kind of move the ladder on?
He's a lacrosse guy too, so he's got tremendous feet. Really, really good athlete. Um, he's such a great kid that his we've had his older brother played for us, Jack, who's now at the now at Army playing lacrosse. Played inside linebacker and tight end for us last few years. But just a tremendous kid, off the field. But he's kind of one of those, and the special ones are like that. As soon as they cross the white line, it's like it's kind of like over the top when Stallone talks about when he turns his hat around. He like turns into a machine. It's kind of like what those great ones do. And Luke's one of those guys that as soon as he crosses the white lines, it's like he's a completely different guy. He's locked in and he's got a little bit of an attitude, which to be an interior defensive lineman, that kind of goes with the territory. But yeah, Luke, unbelievable skill set for a D lineman. Great hands. He's a technician. He really is. And obviously, the closer you are to the ball, quicker things happen. And so you've got to be obviously being big and physical obviously helps, but also being a technician. On the offensive defensive lines is a huge piece to it, and Luke certainly is that. I think one of the biggest things, whatever it takes to get Luke to grow a little bit taller, might help him. Whatever exercise he can do for that. But no, Luke does a great job. He's a tremendous young man, great family. But he's definitely anchors our defense in the middle. And he as a linebacker, I would love to play behind a guy like him.
By the way, 10 bonus points for over the top. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, hit the Googles, find it.
I'm a child of the 80s, Rick. I
It's a guy,
apologize.
right? It's a guy thing, but it's a guy thing, right? Some
Absolutely.
people watch rom coms. This is a guy thing.
Yes.
What's his recruitment like? How much attention's he getting?
It's starting to heat up for him. Obviously, watching the last 3 weeks, he's been our player of the week defensively 2 of the 3 weeks. Has come on, and I mean he had a great year last year, but he was kind of overshadowed by Cash Jacobson a little bit, just because Cash was a mountain of a man, and he ends up going to SC and had a lot of Division I recruitment. So Luke, I wouldn't, overshadowed, just because of the recruitment of Cash, and so it's starting to pick up. People are starting to realize just how good Luke is.
Yeah.
Some FCS offers. He's got some division, some FBS interest, but it's gonna pick up because again. He's still a junior. Right? He's been here since he's been a freshman, playing for us. So it seems like he's a senior, but he's still a junior. So he's got a lot of football left ahead of him.
Yeah, and I've been telling some coaches about him too, just in case,
Yeah,
there was
absolutely.
any,
Yes.
yeah, there was any
Recruit the
interest.
918, right?
Right, yeah, and I get asked
Yeah.
every now and then, "Hey, what'd you see this weekend?" Or, "Would I'm glad to handle that and share that. Now, this is a bye week; it's
Absolutely.
not an off week. Don't you dare say this is an off week to a coach. But how have you spent it? What have you done? Some coaches cut practice back a little, some give them a little extra time off, and then some start focusing on the following week because you got Bixby. So, and that ought to be fantastic. How have you handled it?
We've cut. I wouldn't say cut back. We shortened Monday up just a little bit. We cut a couple of periods off, which our periods are 5 minutes, so we cut 10 minutes off the last 2 days practice, or sorry, I should say Tuesday, Wednesday's practice, and we went about an hour and a half, about 18 periods yesterday. We're going to do some. We're going to run and lift today, and then get them out of here because the Bixby Choctaw game is here at Bixby, and so I know a bunch of our guys are going to go watch it. And then we've got some guys that are at going to the Oklahoma State Tulsa game as well. So trying to get those guys out of here by 4 o'clock and then
Yeah,
get on the
yeah,
road. But yeah, I mean, for us, number one is focus on us. We talked about at the first of the week. Hey, it's attack bye week. It's attack mode. It's not, hey, like you said, a week off. It's I had people ask me, hey, it's bye week. What are you going to do about? I'm like, we're going to work. We're going to practice. Like it's same old, same old. But yeah, work on us. Go back and evaluate the first 3 games. What was good? What was bad? What do we need to get better at as players and as a staff as well? Not just them, but us as well. What did I call well? What did Tyler call well? And the opposite of that. And really start working on Bixby because again, they're really good and they give you a lot of things, from their offense that you got to be able to defend and prepare for. And same thing on defense. They play really hard, really aggressive. And so starting to, last weekend you start formulating a game plan against them, and then we'll kind of finalize that this weekend. But I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. You kind of you don't want to look too far ahead because number one, we got to worry about us and get us better. But then also number two, you're playing a really good opponent next week, so we got to start getting some early prep in for them.
And that really kind of helps, doesn't it? Because, coming off big wins like you have had, it's really easy for kids to start reading social media and newspapers and get happy with themselves. And I know you fight that every day. Every coach fights that. But I think it really helps having someone like this. If you had a West Side team, and I won't even name one that's not very good, it might be easier to lollygag a little bit, but not with these guys. And when you see them as a defensive coordinator, because offensively they do a lot of things, they move a lot of pieces around, really that many plays, just a lot of sheds, formations, and shifts. How do you approach defending that to try to keep it simple for your guys?
You got you've got to like it goes back to when you install the defense starting in January. It's these are our rules, right, based on the call, and so we've got to do a really good job of going back and understanding like it's a lot of eye candy, a lot of smoke and mirrors for them to end up in, XYZ to run, like you said, just they have wrinkles in how they block some plays, but it's a lot of the same thing as far as, run plays go. They block it a little bit different, or like I said, add a different motion or a different shift or running out of a different formation. But you've really just got to be, you can't be simple. That's kind of one of the things is, oh, you got to be simple because that's what they want you to do. They want you to be able to line up in one front, one coverage, and not bring pressure and, they kind of shorten your game plan and eliminate all, your defensive menu. So we've got to do a good job as coaches of making it simple to our guys, but still give us, some multiplicity in what we do, from a call standpoint, because of not just that, they go really fast. They're really fast paced offense, and so they get on the ball, they snap it, but also they do such a good job of doing that. They're on the ball so fast that they still have time to give you multiple motions and multiple shifts. And so I think a big piece to it is just from us, a coaching standpoint, as a coaching staff, is we've got to whatever we do, we've got to be able to teach it to our guys, and where you're multiple, but also it's easy for our guys to learn. But I think, whoever said KISS, keep it simple, stupid, was an offensive guy to make defensive guys, kind of simplify, because I think you've got to do a good job of teaching it. You got to put the onus on yourself as a coach and as a staff of being good teachers of the game. So you make, complex things easy for your guys to learn, So that's one of the things, that they present a challenge of probably as much as anybody, of giving you a lot of eye candy, a lot of smoke and mirrors with the different looks, but we try to keep it, we try to boil it down to, hey, this is what they're actually doing, right? At the end of the day, like, let's make sure we're good with our alignment rules, where our eyes are at, because that's one of the biggest keys on defense, and they do a great job of getting your eyes in the wrong spots. And Coach Snyder and Coach Montgomery and those guys on offense over there do a really good job of doing
Yeah.
that.
And that's what I meant by simple. You've got to make it so that, I mean, I've seen coaches who change a lot of terminology that week. Well, that just doesn't work. I mean, you're going to confuse guys. You got to make sure that they just understand what you are trying to do. When you look at Bixby, you just named a lot of things. What is it you think they do absolutely best?
Play hard. They play hard and they play physical. That's one of the things people might look at them as, with all the shifts and motions and the tempo that, Coach Montgomery's an O-line guy, so they want to run the football. They want to be physical on offense. And so that's one of the things you got to do is you got to make sure on rundowns that you got enough guys to, to fit the run where you have a free hitter. And they do a great job in their run game of, pulling 3 and 4 guys, to one side, and you've got to make sure your numbers are right on the other side of the ball as a defense, and who's got to cross center line and things like that. So I think that's one of the biggest things they do is they're very disciplined. They do a great job of being physical, and they want to run the football. They attack you up front, and that's where they win the game. They've got great skill guys, but they win football games because they beat you up front, and so you've got to be able to match their physicality on both sides of the ball up front.
Yeah, I thought that was the key in last year's opening loss to Owasso. Is it's not very often somebody comes in as physical or more than they are. But your guys have some of the same advantages. I mean, football's about matchups like any other game, and you have some guys who can match up with just about anybody in the state. Well, with anybody, and they do too. And that's the thing is a lot of times they'll out physical you, and then they've got a guy you can't kind of match up with. Normally his name's Presley, but
Yeah.
they've had a few others. And by the way, they're begging the parents to have more kids. I don't know how that's going to go. You might want to do that with the Calmuses,
It's
right?
like the
Instead of them.
Calmuses. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, get into some of that. But so when you do this, looking at the fact that you do have the physicality up front, do you then start looking at other matchups and say, okay, this is where we think we can excel?
Yeah, you want to get, your best on their, least best, so to speak. And yeah, definitely we want to do that. And I think we're pretty physical on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
got some areas to improve upon, obviously, but I think our lines of scrimmage on both sides are pretty physical. And we're getting better, getting especially on the offensive line, the chemistry's coming together really well. We've got some areas to improve upon, but getting those guys to work together and be on the same page. Coach Greenwood's done a great job with putting some of the new pieces together. Only had two returning starters, and so mixing some of our new guys in there, he's done an outstanding job. And then I think our defensive front, we talked about Luke, but Rhett Pangburn, Air Force commit, also up front does a great job. Orlando Williams, those guys have played really tough and really fast, and they're really good up front. Bixby's really good up front, but I think I like our matchups, with them, and we've got to try to win that area because I think that's where you win football games is lines of scrimmage on both sides. Stop the run the football, and play great in the kicking game. And then on the at the skill positions, we've got to do a good job to help, from a defensive standpoint, help our guys out. So we're not putting those guys on an island all night, with the Presleys and some of their other skill kids because they've got. I mean, you could go down the row as far as tremendous wide receivers and running backs that they have. They throw about 3 or 4 running backs in there, and then they bring in a linebacker to play wildcat quarterback. So they present a lot of issues there. So we got to make sure, especially on the edges, that we don't leave our corners one on one all night. We've got to be able to alleviate some pressure on them.
Yeah. Last question before we go is, anytime you start a season with a team and you knew them, you knew who they were anyway. When you start a season with a team, you've got an inkling of what you think they're going to be. Is this team further along than you thought they might be right now? They look to me like 6, 7 games in personally.
Well, I appreciate that. I go back and watch the film, and I told our guys yesterday. I said, and I told them this after the Union game. I said, it's awesome that we're 3-0. Feel great about that. I'm like, we're not very good yet. Like that's just as an old, I'm negative Nelly or whatever you want to say, but I think that's a positive thing though, just because we've got so much room to grow. There's a big ceiling for these guys. I'm not surprised. The way we attacked the offseason, the way we attacked the summer. These guys had a chip on their shoulder. Some things went on in the offseason, a lot of change on the coaching staff. Obviously not just me, but some of the other guys and so they kind of had a chip on their shoulder, and we've talked about it as the throughout the spring and throughout the summer, and they've kind of embraced that role as kind of nobody thinks they're very good. You're Jenks, but you're not the old Jenks. You guys have fallen off, and so Coach Gaylor has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder as well. So I've kind of fed into that as a motivating factor, and so again, I think we're obviously being 3-0 is where you want to be, but there's a lot of room for growth, a lot of room for improvement. The second halves of the Santa Fe and the Union games speak to that. As far as our maturity level and understanding that when you do have a big lead, you've got to be able to to capitalize on that and finish the game in a strong way. And so a lot of areas to grow in all three phases, and so that's what's exciting about it.
So I know you're going to watch a little football tonight. You're going to watch some other football this weekend, I would imagine, huh?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. We'll watch a little. Again, it'll be sparse between a lot of Bixby film there, but I'll try to peek at some of the college games.
I would imagine you would. All right, Coach. We hope you have a tremendous weekend. Be safe out there, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.